For half a decade, the Mets have had one of the richest owners in all of sports. Yet, right now, they have been the most disappointing team in Major League Baseball's history. Most recently, the Mets had a free ticket giveaway, and 57% of the fans who won those tickets didn't even show up. In 2026, they've been one of the worst teams in baseball, one of the worst losing streaks we've ever seen. In back-to-back off seasons, they've added one of the best hitters in baseball, Juan Soto, and then a top pitcher in Freddie Peralta. What I'm telling you is that the Mets are a broken franchise, stuck in a non-stop loop of disgrace, and it started when this happened.
He is going to be far and away the wealthiest owner in Major League Baseball's
The
history.
multi-billionaire hedge fund owner then had control of the New York Mets, and the franchise was destined to change forever.
Massive move, the first blockbuster under Steve Cohen and Sandy Alderson. The Mets are reportedly set to acquire Francisco Lindor and Carlos Carrasco from the Cleveland Indians.
Carlos was a solid arm in Cleveland, but what fans were in genuine disbelief over, well, Lindor.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god! They did it! Got Francisco Lindor! Let's go, Steve Cohen!
After years of missing the playoffs, Lindor felt like the missing piece to filling this Mets puzzle to finally win again. He needed a new contract still, but the Mets were willing to pay up.
Welcome to Major League Baseball, Steve Cohen. I mean, the owner for the Mets knew coming in saying that he wanted to spend money. This was his first challenge. I feel like this is his tentpole. This is what he is going to build this franchise that is now his off of this mega deal. I mean, think of the biggest deal in Mets history up until this point was David Wright, 8 years, $138 million. We're talking $200 million more.
With the addition, Steve Cohen just got the Mets their franchise shortstop for the next decade, a switch hitter with power alongside elite defense. And of course, he wasn't alone in this lineup.
And it's hit in the air to deep left field. Forget that. That is way out of here.
Moving over to their outfield, Brandon Nimmo was a homegrown Met who did a lot for them. Nimmo, Alonso, Lindor, plus all the other players they had. Catcher James McCann signed a 4-year deal. Infielder Jonathan Villar was joining the middle infield. And the homegrown talent in their pitching staff was great. Veteran Jacob deGrom was at the top of his game in the rotation.
And he struck him out with the fastball.
Marcus Stroman was also on the brink of a standout year after being tendered by the team.
And he struck him out. Stroman fans Harper.
Still, people were very concerned about the Mets roster.
But are we really to believe in the New York Mets when you have to take into account defense has to be played, there has to be a rotation behind DeGrom? I mean, those are elements in baseball that actually contribute to winning. I know we're all excited in Queens, New York about those New York Mets, and it's limited there. Trust me, ain't no Mets fan anywhere else in New York outside of Queens.
The part it felt like nobody was talking about is the lack of direction the Mets had in their front office. You see, when Steve Cohen bought them, he anticipated building a program unlike anything they had ever seen. But the guy in charge of building his vision was 73-year-old Sandy Alderson. Originally, he was supposed to hire a president of baseball operations, but couldn't land anyone for a variety of reasons. Then, they did end up hiring a GM to assist Alderson, but the guy they hired lasted only a few months before reports surfaced that he was sending a reporter uninvited inappropriate images, costing him his job. Still, despite their flaws, all of the banter about the Mets roster could end if they just started the season out hot, playing winning baseball for the city of New York for the first damn time in a long time. But that couldn't have been further from the case early on.
Really frustrating few days, I think. Like the last, 72 hours and 3 days has been...
Yeah, it feels like an entire season has already gone by.
Everything was going wrong. This was an unprecedented start for such a talented team. Fans panicked, didn't understand why they were struggling so bad. If there was a dark web with files explaining their struggles, please contact the Mets. Of course, unfortunately, that doesn't exist. What does exist, though, are real dark web files. Massive data leaks by hackers that may contain your personal information. Hackers might have your credentials right now, and that's why I use NordVPN. Criminals aren't going to stop online. I mean, they're constantly selling our information to people without our permission and without us being notified. But Nord's job is to tell you if this is going on through their constant dark web monitor. This isn't the only cyber privacy issue that I personally face. Oftentimes, we'll run into malicious websites, files that are trying to put viruses onto our devices. The solution? Well, NordVPN's Threat Protection Pro will prevent all of these things from happening. Beyond the added security I get with Nord, I also get an entertainment benefit. There are shows and movies on streaming platforms I already pay for that I can watch in other countries. With the purchase of just 2 years, you'll get an extra 4 months for completely free. And did I mention that they're very affordable? It's more expensive to buy one monthly coffee from Starbucks than to be using NordVPN. So right now, go to nordvpn.com/purelybaseball to redeem your discount. Now, getting back to the 2021 Mets, they were losing pretty badly to start the season. And injuries were not being kind to them either. Jacob deGrom, their most talented player in the midst of his prime, got injured. And unfortunately, it was over and over again that deGrom fell victim to injuries. Despite everything, they were finally playing pretty decent baseball months into the season, which some people found shocking with the struggles of the Mets' new acquisition, Francisco Lindor. The $340 million superstar was failing to meet the standards set by everyone in New York. His struggles were concerning, obviously, for a lot of reasons, but also because of the return they gave up to get him. Andrés Giménez was a future all-star second baseman, and utility man Ahmed Rosario was a solid player, so Lindor had to get it going, and quickly. He wasn't alone though. The lineup was so bad that their hitting coach got fired a little over a month into the season. By the trade deadline, the Mets were sitting at 55-48 and were more than capable of winning a lot more than what they were. They had a goal to put stars around the guys they had to make this team so much more complete and ready to compete for a playoff berth. And the first move came in the pitching staff.
The New York Mets have acquired starting pitcher Rich Hill from the Tampa Bay Rays.
They got richer in their staff by adding Mr. Hill, a veteran presence still putting up 3 ERA quality seasons, fulfilling a major need for a team that had already used 15 starting pitchers, tied for the most in baseball. And after getting Hill, they were working behind the scenes to get one more major piece.
Javi Baez is going to be a Met, pending medical review. The Mets making a very big, high-profile trade here.
Acquiring Cubs superstar Javier Baez was a huge deal, not to be taken lightly. After all, he and Lindor had quite the relationship, dating back to their childhood as friends.
Energy and enthusiasm to the Mets, and this is a guy that's an above-average defender wherever you put him, at shortstop, second, or third. And Baez very famously during the World Baseball Classic a few years ago said he always wanted to play shortstop, but if he ever got a chance to play with Francisco Lindor, he'd agree to play second base.
Baez, a 3-time All-Star, World Series champion, NLCS MVP, Gold Glove winner, an awesome addition to their infield.
Left side, Baez snares it, long throw, my goodness. Baez gets one in the air to left field, Winker going back, looking up, and it's out of
Since these fans have been chanting Javi all night, what can they expect to see from you as a New York Met down the stretch?
Well, I'm going to bring my magic here, you know? I'm going to make them fun, we're going to compete, and hopefully we go far in the playoff.
The lineup was filled with big names, and they were confident in their pitching. All that was left was to compete and win this division once and for all. But it wasn't going to be easy, because the 2021 Atlanta Braves were on a roll.
High fly ball, center field deep, and the track, and the wall, it's gone!
In the summertime, the Mets had well over a 70% chance of making the postseason, earning the type of success everyone thought that they would. As the months progressed, it was finally September, 1 month away from the MLB postseason. By then, they were playing bad, injuries were happening, and they just weren't well coached whatsoever. They played their way out of a postseason spot.
Luis Rojas out as the manager of the New York Mets, the club not picking up his option for 2022. The Mets hired Rojas back in 2020 after firing Carlos Beltran before he could manage a single game because of his role in the Astros cheating scandal.
The 2021 Mets became the first team in MLB history to spend 103 days or more in first place of their division and still finish with a losing record. Their highest batting average of all their players, with at least 30 plate appearances, was pitcher Jacob deGrom. He had a .364 average. The team building problem was blatant, and this was undoubtedly the most important offseason that they had in a long time. What do you know, the Mets made a head-scratching decision, to say the least. They hired the former LA Angels general manager, who in his 5-year tenure had a 5-year streak of missing the playoffs, just what they needed. But first, a notable list of Mets were not returning. One in particular that many people didn't quite understand, Javier Baez, was on his way out of the building. Yes, he warranted a high-paying contract, but if the plan was to spend so much anyway, why not bring him back? You already gave a top prospect in Pete Crow Armstrong to the Cubs to get him anyway, a guy who later turned into a Cubs superstar. And it wasn't only Baez leaving, Michael Conforto left the Mets as well, but for a different reason. They offered him $100 million, but he just didn't want to be there. So it was time, 2022, a new vision, a wave built through money that began with action as the first real marble in free agency dropped.
The Mets' $130 million man met the media today. Max Scherzer says that he is thrilled to come to the Big Apple.
It's a great day for the New York Mets. It's even a better day for our fans. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Max Scherzer.
They saw serious value in making this a veteran powerhouse with some of the best players the free agent market had to offer. Because, believe me, Scherzer was just the beginning.
News broke that Starling Marte has signed with the New York Mets.
Starling Marte was the star outfielder. Max Scherzer was the star pitcher. They could check those boxes off. Plus, that same day, they had actually already made 2 separate signings. A $26 million deal for outfield depth in the form of the versatile Mark Canha, and a starting third baseman with the addition of Eduardo Escobar, a switch hitter who could dominate with the team. At this point, they had 4 massive signings. The Mets had made their mark in this free agent class, ready to win their division.
I'm just ready to kick off a new season with the goal of winning a championship in mind, and it's the start of a new journey.
And this journey was headlined with their new manager, Buck Showalter.
Former 3-time AL Manager of the Year has 20 years of MLB experience under his belt and a reputation for building up teams.
This franchise was no easy feat to handle. In their last 15 years, they had missed the playoffs 13 times. But he was exactly the guy to clean this mess. He had won Manager of the Year with 3 different teams at different stages in his career. Whether it was the Yankees, Rangers, the Orioles, it didn't matter. Most recently, between 2010 and 2018, he led the Orioles to 3 playoff berths in 8 years with very low payrolls. This was the best team he had worked with in years, and the season was going amazing.
It's out of here! Grand slam, Pete Alonso! Lindor homers from both sides of the plate. JD rips one down the line. That's an extra base hit. Now pulls one over the bag. Goldschmidt with a sprawling stop. The race to the bag. And Dom is safe. And 2-run score. And the Mets take the lead.
By the time summer was over, they had 60 wins and were heavily considering adding a Cubs superstar, Wilson Contreras. A 20 home run power bat, a multi-time All-Star, but the price was high. It was expected they'd have to trade away a top prospect from their system, something they already did in the Lindor trade. So they looked at Contreras and decided to keep their prospects and instead build their system to be loaded with homegrown talent, which meant they wouldn't be adding anyone to his caliber of player. Instead, they'd make a smaller addition and attempt to make a World Series run.
The Mets went out and acquired Daniel Vogelbach.
Vogelbach, a power-hitting slugger who slid directly into their DH spot. He prevailed into being a pretty good acquisition as one of their better hitters in a very good lineup.
Vogelbach's 0 for 2 today, and he drives one to deep right field. Back goes Castellanos, takes a look, and it's out of here.
As a team, they had the 2nd highest batting average in baseball, 5th in runs scored, and also had a top 7 pitching staff by ERA. Their second baseman, Jeff McNeil, also hit for a career-high .326 batting average in incredible fashion. The Mets were good for 101 wins, the most that they've had since the 1980s. This was a time for fans to rejoice, be happy that their favorite sports team is finally winning again. But there were still problems. After forcing a 10.5 game division lead over the Braves, the Mets still fell into 2nd place by the end of the year. The Braves got to rest, while the Mets had to play a series against the Padres, one of the best teams in all of baseball.
But first time since 2016, the playoff train has pulled into Queens, Flushing, New York, where the Mets tonight.
Future Hall of Famer Mad Max Scherzer was on the mound for the Mets, and he came out electric.
Up 2-2.
Soto, check swing goes around. Strike three. Couldn't hold up with a cutter.
He had back-to-back outs, but then...
Top of the second inning. This ball to right, going back is Marte, still going back, it's carrying, and it carries over the wall!
A pathetic outing undoubtedly, but they had one more chance. Beat the Padres in Game 2, or your season is over and that's it. They had to give it their all with Met legend Jacob DeGrom pitching.
This will be my first time in, 7 years pitching in the postseason, and first time at Citi Field, so I'm excited,
2-1 Soto. Late on it, 1-0-2, he's gone.
On the other side of the spectrum, the Padres were pitching Blake Snell, which wasn't a problem.
And Lindor hits this one deep to left field, going back is Profar, and the pregame batting practice works. Francisco Lindor leaves the building.
This game was a dogfight. The Padres would score and then the Mets would respond. The Padres stood no chance.
Bell on the ground, Alonso. He will flip, and the Mets will survive. They win it 7-3.
Against all odds, their lineup exploded with runs in Game 2. Both teams had one last game against one another to decide the fate of their seasons. Now, this game was bound to go a little bit different. There was no Scherzer or DeGrom to pitch in their most important game of the season. It was Chris Bassett, a former Oakland Athletic who they traded for just shortly before the season, who had solid playoff experience. But in just the second inning, he let up a single, walked a batter, walked another, and suddenly they were in trouble.
Nola on the ground, Lindor can't get it. Bell's gonna come in to score. Him follows him.
The Padres were hitting the Mets around, and their pitcher Joe Musgrove, who was in the midst of his best season of his career, was laying the Mets down. Even when they made hard contact, the Padres were making great defensive plays. They were killing the Mets.
And he hits that fair down the third baseline. Hassan Kim is in. Grisham follows. And Juan Soto adds 2 more.
And that was the Mets' 2022 season. Scherzer said it was the worst day of their season. The collective attitude amongst this group of guys was that they let New York City down. They let their team down, each other. The Mets were at a franchise-altering point. How do you build onto a team that should have already won a World Series? Another free agency class that broke the bank in an attempt to build the best team in Mets history? Or do you go another route? To be honest, we've never seen anything quite like this.
Well, day one of free agency and the Mets wasting absolutely no time, signing their all-star closer Edwin Diaz to a 5-year, $102 million deal,
Diaz was a no-brainer to bring back. To back up their elite closer Edwin Diaz, righties Adam Ottavino and David Robertson were brought in. But beyond that, there were a million question marks. Their best pitcher, Jacob DeGrom, was a free agent, and it didn't sound like they really wanted to bring him back either.
DeGrom, gone from the New York Mets as he signs a whopping 5-year, $185 million contract with the Texas Rangers.
With DeGrom out, this left a bleak pitching staff that didn't make a lot of sense. Bassett even chose to walk into free agency and leave New York. It was Scherzer and really nobody else. In the outfield, Brandon Nimmo was also in the open market. They could have stuck with their homegrown players or let them walk like they did DeGrom. Shortly into the offseason, we got our answer. The debate of whether Brandon Nimmo's value at $162 million was worth it is something that I'm just not sure about.
Brandon Nimmo is staying in the Big Apple, and he gets a big deal thanks to his new agent, Scott Boras. 8 years, $162 million, breaks down to more than $20 million per year.
Next up was building a plan for the pitching staff. In such a loaded market, they decided to build a rotation of star veterans, starting with the best.
Mets have brought in 3-time Cy Young winner Justin Verlander from Houston. Verlander has agreed to a 2-year, $86 million deal with the Mets.
After creating the pair of Scherzer and Verlander, they signed Jose Quintana, a 2.93 ERA pitcher, to slot in the rotation, and they still had big moves left in them.
Another big signing for the Mets. The club is in agreement with this man. Japanese right-hander Kodai Senga was a star in Japan. making 3 All-Star teams, winning 5 Japanese Series championships, and he joins a loaded pitching staff with Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander.
Steve Cohen and Billy Epler have been busy this offseason, not only addressing the Mets' pitching needs, but also the overall lineup.
$460 million in contracts that have been handed out this offseason.
Entering the 2023 season, the Mets were a team with high hopes, expectations, not just from their fans, but the players themselves. Weaknesses were addressed across the board. There were no more excuses. But in the beginning, before the season even started, the worst happened. It was the 2023 World Baseball Classic, and Edwin Diaz entered the game for Puerto Rico to close the game. But then...
Strike 3 called. Hopefully Edwin Diaz isn't really hurt.
Edwin left in blatant pain as he cried, knowing this was serious.
New York Mets All-Star closer Edwin Diaz expected to miss the season with a knee injury.
This happened right after his best season with over 30 saves. They were now without their top bullpen arm, and Heavy Flaws stuck out immediately.
This one's hit well, right center, carrying, home run, Garrett Cooper.
Scherzer had struggles that lingered with a 5.66 ERA just a month into the season. The team had a 16-13 record and what looked like an easy series against the Tigers coming up. Game 1, Nimmo drops this ball, the Tigers hit a home run, and the Mets lose this game. Then it's Verlander's return against his former team in Detroit.
Green launches one, deep right field, yes sir!
They lost 4 games in a row, and their season went up and down over the summer. By June 24th, they were in complete panic mode.
The team lost for the 14th time in 18 games.
It's really inexcusable and at most times unwatchable baseball.
The scary part is the underperformers with the guys who had just gotten paid.
And you have Brandon Nimmo making an error and dropping a ball in center field, and
the only signing who was actually playing like a superstar was first-year MLB star Kodai Senga. Do you keep what you have, do you trade guys away, or add someone? They made a move and their intentions became awfully clear.
Wow, the Mets fire sale has officially begun. They've traded closing pitcher David Robertson to the Miami Marlins.
Taking over for Diaz was David Robertson, so they had just traded their starting closer, sending shockwaves throughout their organization. The person this hit the most was their star pitcher Max Scherzer, realizing that at his age, he just wanted to win and wouldn't stay if they didn't. So he scheduled his meeting, got an answer, and got the hell out of there.
On Saturday, the Mets traded pitcher Max Scherzer to the Texas Rangers in exchange for prospect Luis Angel Acuna.
Prior to leaving, they told Scherzer that 2024 would be a transition year for the team, meaning that winning wasn't the #1 priority. As the Mets parted ways with him, this era was over. They'd have to regroup and find a new identity. So that's what they did.
The Mets deal Justin Verlander back to Houston.
Right after signing Verlander and Scherzer to be a two-headed monster, Verlander was headed out. Instead of operating like a fantasy baseball team, they were finally building towards something great. Unsurprisingly, they also began the search for a true president of baseball operations. And right then, before the season was even over, the man they wanted hit the market.
Significant news for the Mets as Steve Cohen and the organization have agreed to terms with David Stearns to become the franchise's first ever president of baseball operations.
The #1 payroll of all time, the New York Mets. Inexplicably, it did not work. They tore it down. Stearns comes in. I'll just throw in 7 years with the Milwaukee Brewers from 2015 to 2022. Made the playoffs 4 years. Highly competent organization on a slightly lower payroll, and also a ball club that had a very modern baseball ops department. David Stearns helped install that.
Got a full house today, huh? Pretty good. I've never seen such universal congratulations and saying you've got to hire this guy.
Stearns inherited big superstars, but a sustained winner is about how you build around them. With such a high payroll, you could pay 2 or 3 guys an incredible amount of money, or you could sign a list of competent players, just as the Milwaukee Brewers have done for so long under Stearns. But to manage such a roster, Buck Showalter wasn't the guy to do it as they moved on, and the Mets made a controversial hire with Carlos Mendoza. We saw a handful of decent bats join the lineup: JD Martinez at DH, Harrison Bader, a defensive specialist, and Tyrone Taylor with solid outfield depth. The rotation, Sean Manaea was coming to the Mets, and so was former Yankee star Luis Severino. With so much of the roster transformed for 2024, I had no idea what would happen or how they would play.
3-1 over the New York Mets. And he grounds one down the third baseline. That'll quiet the crowd.
They started 0-5, and fans pushed the panic button. It got worse too. They were 24-35, had lost 8 of their last 9 games, and were on track to be a letdown. But this was a true test for the leaders of the team. And right then is when Lindor called a team meeting upon everyone in a defining moment to help stabilize their clubhouse. He told them not to lose sight of what's ahead, that they need to be optimistic, keep the energy, play with passion. For as long as he's been on the Mets, they've never had any of that, but in 2024, he hoped to make that happen despite early struggles. From this day onward, nothing was the same. As an offense, they were scoring more runs than they ever had before, with a pitching staff that dominated. If it wasn't for Lindor, things might not have ever been that way. The Mets were at the top of the league, and the phrase heard repeatedly from multiple players was, "We're just trying not to do too much. Trust the next guy." This mentality garnered support across their clubhouse, setting them up for a damn good season headlined by a specific guy.
This is Grimace throwing out the first pitch, celebrating his 53rd birthday.
Back at the wall. It's out of here. Mark Vientos wins the game for New York.
And the Mets win. The Mets hold on and win 6-5.
And Nimmo clocks one to deep right field. White goes back, takes a look, and it's out of here. And the ball game is over. Going back from 0-5 to OMG. What a ride. The Mets are going to the postseason in 2024.
By the end of 2024, they were 89-73. A playoff run was destiny. And what's better than a series against David Stern's former organization, the Milwaukee Brewers? Game 1, an offensive masterclass and a victory. Game 2 was a loss, but they fired back in Game 3.
One hop, runs to second, one throws to first, out at first, out at first, put it in the box. The Mets are out at the mound, pouncing on each other. This party is headed to Philadelphia.
The Brewers were a big challenge to overcome, but they undeniably had a much bigger task in Philadelphia. Unlike the Mets, Philly was a consistent playoff team with a core that could win, and it didn't start out easy.
Pitch, swung on, there's number 21! Way up into the second deck, Kyle Schwarber!
But the Mets did what they've done all season.
Out. Breaking ball line to left field. That's a base hit. Here comes Bader around third. He scores the tying run.
Throughout the series, they destroyed the Phillies and advanced into the NLCS, one round away from a World Series berth, the first under Steve Cohen. In the championship series, they got to play Ohtani's LA Dodgers. 2 of the highest payrolls in all of Major League Baseball.
Score. Into center field, and the Dodgers cash in. That's in to score. Freeman lumbering home. He'll score as well.
The relentless Dodgers were simply too much for this Mets team. Nobody, and I mean nobody, thought they could have made it this far. A first-year manager, first-year front office, and a regime that had no prior success, falling short of a World Series berth by just a little is insane. The plan all along was to put all of their marbles into 2025, so now was their chance to show that to the world. And I'll tell you, this was probably the craziest offseason in Mets history. Do you re-sign slugger Pete Alonso or do you let him go? Their homegrown star sat on the market for months, and he realized nobody was offering him the money that he wanted. He returned on a massive 2-year deal worth $54 million, including an opt-out after 2025. But the prize of the offseason that every rich team in baseball was chasing is outfielder Juan Soto. The frontrunners to land him were the two New York teams, the Yankees and the Mets. It turned into a massive bidding war as everyone prepared for Soto to sign the richest contract in baseball history, surpassing Ohtani's former highest contract. You see, in year one with the Yankees in 2024, Soto made it to the World Series, so it just made sense for him to return there. But Cohen was going all in, doing everything it took. He and his agent Scott Boras to his house directly, invited him to a massive dinner. They were able to pitch a long-term vision for why the Mets are the franchise to play for, and that he could be at the center of it. So ultimately, Soto made his big choice.
A 15-year, $765 million deal with the Mets.
This wasn't just another big money signing. Soto's the type of guy you could call generational, a future Hall of Famer, an easy 40 home runs inserted into their lineup, who gets on base and does not strike out. Lindor, Alonso, Soto, one of the most ridiculous lineups we've ever seen.
Generationally brilliant. He's one of the best hitters I've ever seen.
By June, they had the best record in baseball, 45-24, better than everyone. With a division lead of 5.5 games, this gave them a 75% chance at winning the division, a 96% chance at clinching a playoff berth. Statistically, they had the #1 pitching staff in the majors. Their bullpen was second. They were winning playoff games. But there was one moment that shifted the atmosphere. Lindor and McNeil had reportedly gotten into it, and this was the beginning of dysfunction. We were hearing that Soto and Lindor's relationship wasn't great either. When Soto first signed with the Mets, Lindor didn't text him, call him, or welcome him into the team at all, which is a complete contrast from how Aaron Judge treated Soto when he joined the Yankees. So unlike anything we had ever seen, the Mets had a bottom 3 record in all of baseball from June onward and resulted in the worst.
And the Mets' agonizing 3.5-month slow motion collapse is complete.
As to why they collapsed so badly, there are a million reasons, but most importantly, their pitching staff was horrific, along with Mendoza, who didn't seem to know how to manage a damn bullpen. A bullpen, by the way, that David Stearns cluttered at the 2025 trade deadline through trading away prospects, adding guys who just didn't work out. He had a real mess to clean up. How do you fix this? Well, for Stearns, he wanted to get rid of a lot of their own players. Jeff McNeil, Brandon Nimmo, both traded from their lineup, quickly replaced with 2 other supposed superstars.
Infielder Bo Bichette has reportedly signed a contract with the New York Mets.
Bichette was one of the best hitters in the game, and they signed him to a ridiculous contract. 3 years, $126 million. I promise nobody thought he would get $42 million a year, and they weren't even done yet.
Mets have a new outfielder. Jeff Passan of ESPN reporting the Amazons are acquiring outfielder Luis Robert Jr. from the White Sox.
Luis Robert was one of the best hitters for quite a while, but had a down year in 2025, and the Mets truly believed that they could fix him. So, on paper, they had gotten a lot better until this.
Pete Alonso, no longer a New York Met, reportedly heading to the Baltimore Orioles.
With the departure of Pete Alonso, that meant losing about 40 home runs from the first base position alone. His replacement was Mariners star Jorge Polanco on a 2-year, $40 million deal. Though the big part of their offseason came in how they revamped their pitching.
Edwin Diaz, no longer a New York Met.
Instead, they signed former Brewers and Yankees closer Devin Williams. The sad part is, yeah, Williams was great as a Brewer when David Stearns was there, but he completely sucked in New York with the Yankees in 2025 as his ERA imploded. Williams wasn't the only Milwaukee Brewer that they plan on acquiring.
The Mets acquiring ace Freddie Peralta from the Brewers.
Peralta is one of the best pitchers in the game, and he was the perfect pitcher to lead them. This completed their offseason, and they went into 2026 with crazy high expectations. I haven't even mentioned Nolan McLean, who was perceived to be one of the best pitching prospects the Mets have ever had. The mentality in their clubhouse was to pretty much forget everything about 2025. They started the season 7-4, and then the worst happened, a 12-game losing streak. for reference, 138 teams in MLB history have had 12-game losing streaks, but 0 of them have ever made the playoffs. During this losing streak, Soto was out with a big injury. When he came back, he admitted he went 14 games without talking to a single teammate, not one word. On the field, Soto's numbers unsurprisingly looked amazing, but where he lacks is obvious. 2025, he hit for a .238 average with runners in scoring position. In 2026, this was still a weakness of his and the Mets as a whole. Because many of the players that they let go, like McNeil, hit .278, Alonso .309, and Nimmo .310. Not being able to drive runners in is an easy way not to score runs. Also, Soto seemed to have drama with Lindor. In 2025, their lockers were right next to each other. In 2026, they're on complete opposite sides of the room. Speaking of Lindor, he was playing awful. On top of not being able to hit, he was making mental mistakes, causing a ton of defensive errors. First base, that was a disaster with Jorge Polanco as he hit the injured list for the 7th time since 2022. When he was playing, he was one of their worst hitters in the lineup. Then we get to the pitching staff. Devin Williams was a major downgrade from Edwin Diaz. Through 50 games, they're battling with the Marlins for last place in this division. Everything bad that could have happened has happened, from devastating injuries, superstars collapsing, nothing going right, and I'm not sure that this ship will ever turn around.